to the Power of Feminine Leadership webinar. I'm really excited to be speaking to you all this morning, and thank you. The webinar I'm going to try and keep to just under an hour, and the first half is going to be time for me to share with you our thought leadership and ideas around the concept of the power of feminine leadership, and also a little bit about my story and how we've been incorporating these in our organisation in a way that is really, really successful. And then the second half, I would like to spend answering any questions that you have and sharing any ideas and thoughts with the rest of the audience that you want to. So there's a chat box at the bottom. As we go through the first half of the session, if you have any questions that come up for me, please put them in there. And then when I finish going through the content, I'll return to them and endeavour to answer them. So first of all, thank you, Meirc Plus Training, for inviting me to come and speak to you on this webinar. I am the lead facilitator for the Women in Leadership programme for Meirc, and we've been working together in partnership the last few years, and they've been creating lovely opportunities and experiences for me to work with women all over the UAE. So thank you so much for that. I'm really excited to be talking to you about this subject matter. The concept of female leadership and women in leadership has been something that's been part of my life for the past 15 years. And now moving into the concept of feminine leadership and the power of that, I think is really, really important. I think 2019 is the year for that. I'm going to be offering you a very different way of thinking. I'm going to be offering you some opinions and some viewpoints. And really, this is to create an open dialogue. We've been working in this space for quite some time now, but we're really keen and excited to connect with like-minded individuals who, somebody's just put that they can't hear me. Can someone just let me know if you can hear me speaking? I'm going to continue on just in case. So we're going to be creating an open dialogue. And I think that the concept of feminine leadership is something that we really need to be able to be bringing into our organizations, to take them from a place of just surviving to thriving. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So why am I passionate about the power of feminine leadership? So people talk about feminine leadership, meaning female leadership. It's the current reality construct. We're very focused on women in leadership. We're very focused on bringing more females into the organization. But for me, the concept of feminine leadership is about culture change. It's about changing organizations so that they are more communicative, so that they're more collaborative, and that they are more about connecting in with their community and their customers. And I think that that is what we need from the organization of tomorrow. Organizations that are in their extreme masculine, and masculine is, the masculine energy is focused on self, and that is about survival. It's about ensuring that you have enough of everything. But extreme masculine is selfish to the exclusion of others. So that we lack the collaboration, the connectivity, and so on. And in today's world, these things are really, really key and important. And on the other hand, when you're in extreme feminine, we're empathetic to the exclusion of self. So we need the balance of the masculine and the feminine in organizations to ensure that not only are we surviving, which is the profitability, but we're thriving and we're being able to connect and collaborate. So a little bit about me before we go into what is the power of feminine leadership and how does it help organizations to become more successful. I'm the co-founder of Roundtable Globe, which we started in 2015. And as the main female leader in the organization, one of my things to bring into it was this concept of ensuring that we had leadership balance. So ensuring that we had the balance of masculine and feminine. And we have built a whole business paradigm around this. And in the 4 short years that we've been going, we've been delivering programs in 26 different countries. We work with over 102 global change ambassadors, taking our concepts and our 3 global goals out into the world. And all of these things have built the business case for the power of feminine leadership. So it's important that I share them with you. Also, that I've been working in learning and development for nearly 20 years now, and I was working for 10 years for one of the biggest global management consultancies, and my role there was focused on being the global head of innovation. So very much looking into designing and delivering programs and culture change in organizations to ensure that they are sustainable and beyond sustainable. I have specific expertise in leadership, focusing on creating empowering cultures and finding balance. I've done TED Talks on women in leadership and the masculine and feminine. And also, when we started our organization, we created a series of 10 global summits, which were called Finding Balance. And the whole thing was focused on bringing together 3 generations to say, if we are going to create organizations and governments that are thriving and are focused on creating a new kind of global ecosystem that is healthy and sustainable for everybody, then we need to bring in this balance and this masculine and feminine. I'm also the co-creator of Flourish and Shine, which are culture change programs we deliver in 20 countries around this concept of feminine leadership. And I've worked directly with people like the First Lady of Japan on bringing this kind of feminine leadership culture change into Japan and other countries. And also the Kingdom of Bahrain for the World Women Wellbeing Conference. So it's something that I'm incredibly passionate about and something that we have put a lot of time and energy into in terms of creating a new construct and new paradigm for organizations. So the whole concept of the finding balance is looking not only at profitability, which is the masculine success side of organizational performance, but also at people and planet. And that is ensuring that your talent are nurtured, that they have their potential unlocked, they're looked after, and they are able to be creative and bring their whole self into the workplace. Not just people in terms of your talent, but also your customers, your stakeholders, etc. Having this feminine leadership energy in the organization opens you up to that. It opens you up to collaborations and partnerships, and that's exactly what we've done with Roundtable Global, and I think that's why we've managed to be so successful as we have in such a short amount of time, and I'm going to talk to you more about that. So what is feminine leadership? As I said before, it isn't about the male and female. Everybody thinks when we're talking about feminine leadership, we're talking about females. When we're talking about masculine, we're talking about male. Feminine and masculine are leadership energies. They're like yin and yang, and everybody has them in us. The feminine leadership is about other, and the masculine leadership is about self. And you need both of them to be able to survive and thrive. If you focus purely on other, which is in the feminine, then you aren't thinking about your own success and what you need to be able to survive in the organization. If you're thinking about self all the time, then you're not creating the collaborations and partnerships that you need to be able to be creative and innovative. So they are both absolutely essential in the organization. Attributing the feminine and the masculine to the male and female, which happens with many diversity programs and women in leadership programs, etc., is divisive. And it actually feeds the unconscious bias towards the sexual stereotyping. So when we're looking at male and female rather than masculine and feminine, we're actually creating even more of that divide. So all of the work that we're doing around the power of feminine leadership is helping organizations to understand that every single person in their organization is a unique individual human being with the ability to tap into both the feminine and the masculine. And as soon as you allow permission to the people in your organization to sit in the masculine and the feminine, you create so many opportunities for creativity and innovation. And you also create workplaces and cultures that are healthy, where people can come in and they can bring all of their skills and their talents. And these skills and talents are tapped into in a way that is really, really sustainable and also developmental. The polarity between having the masculine and the feminine organization creates an energetic dynamism. It's like sexual attraction. And that sparks creativity, innovation, and also the use of imagination for ideas. So organizations that want to be the best that they can be, organizations that want to come up with brand new, unique ideas, inspirational thinking, etc., need that polarity of the masculine and feminine. They need to be thinking about their long-term sustainability, but at the same time, constantly reimagining who they are as an organization. And that's where the feminine leadership comes in and the power of that. So my role in the organization this year is going to be wholly focused on developing this. I'm writing a book at the moment which is focused purely on the feminine leadership. And what I'm really excited about is what the reintroduction of this could mean to community and society. So back in history, there was much more of a balance between the feminine and the masculine when we lived in communities, when we shared roles. And now what we've done is we've defined those roles for the feminine and the masculine to the male and the female. And now is the time for us in this point in our ecosystem, but also in terms of the economy and the globalization and collaboration and so on, where we really need to bring that feminine and masculine back together and allow every single person to be able to tap into that. Feminine leadership belongs to all of us. It's a state of being that recognizes and understands that we're on this planet to connect, learn, share, and evolve. And every single organization that has those 4 things as a focus is going to become more sustainable. And not only more sustainable, but more creative, and create cultures where talent really, really want to be. The concept of connecting, learning, sharing, and evolving is very feminine, because it is about opening your doors and your minds and your intellectual property to other people, in the knowledge that if they do similar to you, or if they copy, that it creates some kind of supportive competition, so that you can then innovate and create. As an organisation, we don't patent or copyright any of our intellectual property, because we know that other people that do the same as us or similar to us will help us to become more innovative and creative going forward. So feminine leadership creates space and cultures for unique creativity, which is really, really important. It's that ability for people to tap into their imaginations, for them to take risks, for them to be innovative. And a lot of masculine energies don't allow for that, because actually masculinity is about survival, it's about performance, and it's much more focused on doing what you need to be able to do to reach the profitability. As soon as you go into the people and planet side of things, which is the potential and the collaboration and so on, then you allow that unique creativity. And of course, that's where all the ideas and innovations come from. It's also about inclusiveness. So we know that there are many different initiatives out there around diversity and inclusivity, but actually there we're talking about including women in the conversations, women in the dialogue. What we're talking about in terms of the power of leadership is including everybody in the dialogue, but within their ability to join the dialogue, allowing them to tap into their feminine and their masculine. Collaboration and supportive competition. So I've already mentioned supportive competition to you once. Many organizations are in the masculine version of competition, and the masculine version of competition, and there's no right or wrong here, it's just a different version of it, is where you're looking at, I want to win so that you lose, or it's about focusing on people who are performing better than others, which is quite an exclusive space to be in. The concept of supportive competition, which forms part of most of the programs that we're delivering, is about saying, I want to win so that you can also win. It's about being the best version of yourself so that you raise the bar for other people. And it's about sharing your knowledge and resources and successes so the people around you can meet you where you are, where the bar's raised. They can then go on to raise the bar even further, which will help you and support you and empower you to also raise the bar. So the concept of supportive competition is a really, really powerful one. And it's another example of bringing feminine leadership into an organization, which is in alignment with the concept of utilizing competition to make your organization more successful, but it's much more inclusive and much more supportive. And it also creates a much more dynamic culture in an organization, in the sense of people collaborating and sharing. And there's this concept within supportive competition that we use in our programs, where we get people to build on what other people have already done. So for example, with creativity, it can sometimes feel really risky if you're creating a new project from scratch, or if you're building something, or if you come up with ideas, to do that by yourself. Utilizing supportive competition brings other people into the conversation, so that you can start something, or they can start something, and then the other person builds on it, hands it over, and then builds on it and builds on it. And when we do that in our programs, we find the most amazing things happen in terms of ideas and imagination, because when you're collaborating, when you're supporting each other, it feels less risky than when you're doing things on your own, which is the very masculine energy. And again, I want to reiterate that this is an offering in terms of a different way of thinking around these things, and neither is right or wrong or good or bad. All of them are necessary, and all of them are needed for an organization to be surviving and thriving. But at the moment, we have very masculine-led organizations where it is much more about the profitability and the survival than it is about the longer-term inclusive sustainability of the organization. So organizations that can step authentically into feminine when leading are able to demonstrate insight, kindness, the desire to energetically connect to and unlock true potential in others. Now, with the way that the world's changing, with the millennials, with the talent bank that's out there, these amazing, inspirational young people, and we work with a lot of them at Roundtable as an organisation, they are looking for organisations that are demonstrating feminine leadership qualities. They want to step into cultures where they're going to be developed, where they're seen as a as an asset, where they're seen as something that is to be invested in long term, not just a cog in the wheel or part of the performance and success of the organization. So I think, if you're thinking about attracting and retaining talent from a leadership perspective, stepping into that feminine leadership is really going to be able to nurture and unlock potential. And it goes back to the concept of supported competition, because you have amazing talent in your organization that is looking to win, to raise the bar, so that other people raise the bar, and so on. So it's a very new and innovative space to be in. And we know from the work that we've been doing with organizations globally that as soon as they start to create a vision and values and culture around incorporating feminine leadership, and let's remember that I'm not saying that masculine leadership needs to be out. It needs to be, we're about finding balance in this leadership. They instantly become much more successful and are more able to not only attract talent, but understand their needs and understand the needs of other external stakeholders. So the masculine side of controlling and conquering, which again is needed for survival, is the polar opposite of the supported competition. And as I said, that polarity creates a dynamism, which in turn increases the performance of the organisation. And people who are in this space of supported competition also see winners, or people who are performing really well in the organisation, to see them as teachers rather than as a threat. So these are people that can teach them, that can share ideas and resources with them, and help them to become the best versions of themselves. The power of feminine leadership also includes in it communication and collaboration. So it's about bringing into the organisation a very open mind in terms of being able to communicate and being able to demonstrate vulnerability, emotion, empathy, being able to share thoughts and feelings, and all of those things, all of that openness in terms of the feminine leadership is going to create a much more cohesive and inclusive culture for the organisation. As I said at the beginning of the webinar, when you're in extreme masculine, it's about being selfish to the exclusion of others. And that's where we go to when we're in a place of recession. It's where organizations go to when they're struggling to compete with organizations out in the marketplace. It's very much a focus on profitability. And what that starts to do is erode the innovation and creativity in an organization. And the polar opposite is when you're in the feminine, which is about being empathetic to the exclusion of self. So again, just to reiterate, it's about bringing those two things into alignment and balance. It's not focused on one or the other. It's about creating balance in an organization. If you're in either the extreme masculine or the extreme feminine, decision making becomes impossible, as it will impact somebody in a way that feels negative to the organization. So what are the core things that organizations need to be looking at in terms of bringing in this feminine leadership into the culture? And I do see this very much as a culture change program, as opposed to a women in leadership or an empowerment program. And it requires everyone in the organization to really understand this and to embrace it. So it's about being networked and inclusive. So in today's world, which is very virtual, very much using technology because of globalization, it can be difficult to communicate, it can be difficult to connect and to create relationships in the masculine leadership energy, because as I said, it's very much focused on the profit and success. When you're in the feminine, you're creating and developing people within your culture who are very open to communicate. They're effective communicators. They have the ability to reach out and connect with other people because they are focused on this supportive collaboration and competition. And it's about thriving, not just surviving. Organizations who are embracing feminine leadership, actually not just at a senior leadership level, but throughout the whole organization, are thriving because of the innovation, the creativity, and the supportive competition that comes out of that. It's about nurturing. I'm part of Richard Branson's 100% Human at Work leadership group, and that's focused on creating cultures in organizations that are understanding that every single person in the organization is a unique individual human being. It's not about labeling them. So even when we're looking at diversity and inclusion, we're talking about gender, we're talking about religion, we're talking about sexuality, etc., etc. Labeling creates divisiveness. So for me, looking at leadership as balance is about bringing together that masculine and feminine without any labels, and understanding that every single person in the organization is a human and has some value to add in a very, very unique way. And the programs that we deliver around finding this balance in leadership are all about allowing people to really tap into that uniqueness and bring it into the organization. So it's about attracting and retaining talent and developing them for the long term. The feminine leadership quality of empathy is a very underrated emotion, I feel, within organizations. There are people out there talking about it, but within the construct of creating a balance of feminine and masculine leadership energies, empathy is incredibly important. If you can develop within your talent bank, within your people assets in the organization, the ability to empathize, you're going to be much more likely to know and understand what your customers, your consumers, and your stakeholders want. And that leads to proactive anticipation or even proactive creation of products and services. It's about being in a solution-driven mindset as opposed to just a problem-solving mindset. And of course, solution-driven is looking at the root cause as opposed to the symptom. And the solution side of things is the feminine, and the problem solving is the masculine. So again, we really need to have that balance in organizations so we can be proactive rather than just reactive. But it's about having both of them equally. The feminine is about attracting versus seeking. The masculine leadership is seeking, so it's going and finding information, finding products, finding customers. Attracting, which is the feminine, is about understanding, about being in energetic flow. It's about really understanding that we are energetic beings and we have the ability to broadcast out what we want, to set intentions, and then we can attract that in, again, which is very much in the feminine. So our leadership programs that we deliver around this are working with every single individual to help them to understand what they're energetically broadcasting, because organizations are an ecosystem, and it just takes one person in the organization to be broadcasting fear, doubt, blame, things that are all orientated towards masculine energies of profitability, for customers and consumers and stakeholders to feel that and to energetically react to that. It's about compassion. It's about understanding that even though it's an organization that needs to be successful and needs to perform, it also has a place in the world in terms of going back to that triple bottom line reporting. The masculine is the profitability, and the feminine is the people and the planet. The compassion is understanding that we are part of a bigger ecosystem, and organizations that are focusing on their environmental and community impact, as well as their people, and that is all stakeholders, are actually outperforming organizations that aren't. So we know that it's important for organizations to have corporate social responsibility or to be responsible for businesses, but the feminine leadership energy isn't seeing this as a unique selling point or just a business benefit. It really is about holistically understanding that if we can have a positive impact on our global ecosystem, both in terms of environment, society, community, etc., we are going to be attracting and retaining in talent, customers, consumers, etc. So that compassion is a really, really important part of bringing in the power of the feminine leadership in the organization. And also intuition. So I've already mentioned about being energetic beings. We have the ability to broadcast out and to attract in what we need as organizations, but also as individuals. The feminine leadership has a very, very strong sense of intuition. It's about feeling. It's about not using the conscious mind to block what it is that we want to create, or not using the conscious mind, which is full of biases and patterns and social stereotypes in terms of things that we think that we want, and instead tapping into that subconscious knowing, that feeling of what the organization needs or what the customers need. And again, all of these things lead to massively increased innovation, creativity, ideas, inspiration, and imagination. And these are all things that we weave into our programs in terms of the methodology that we use. So again, we're utilizing feminine energies of creativity, imagination, and play to help people to better understand themselves and to further develop themselves, which is creating really, really exciting results. And I think because the programs we're delivering, including the one that we do from Meirc Plus Training, are focused on developing the individual as well as their impact on the organisation. It's about empowering self so that you can further empower others. It's like dropping a pebble into the river and the ripples go out and it actually starts to create culture change in the organisation. It's also about receiving and self-care. So feminine leadership energies are receiving and self-care. There's so much in the news at the moment, and particularly actually in the Middle East and when I've been over there delivering programs around well-being and resilience and mental health. There are huge statistics in terms of how men, particularly in organisations, are being impacted around mental health, depression, stress, anxiety. Suicide is one of the biggest killers of men under the age of 50 in the UK, for example. And a lot of this is because they are in very masculine leadership energy organisations, patriarchal, where they're not able to express themselves, they're not able to share, to feel vulnerable, to be emotional, and that's really having an impact with mental health. Bringing feminine leadership energies in balance and alignment with the masculine and creating this balanced culture in organizations is actually been demonstrated to dramatically reduce the amount of stress, anxiety, depression, etc. in organizations. So there's a real well-being business benefit to bringing that in as well. And understanding that bringing in the feminine leadership energy is going to the root cause rather than addressing the symptoms. So lots of organisations have got mental health, resilience and wellbeing programs, such as bringing in masseurs or doing meditation, and they're fantastic. They're really, really great. So I think that every organisation should be doing that. But actually, they are coping mechanisms and they are addressing the symptom. Bringing in and being in the feminine leadership energy and understanding that the organisation needs to be nurturing, it needs to be focusing on individuals as human beings, and it needs to be flexible. So every single person in your organisation needs something different, and that's outside of the diversity and inclusion labels. It's understanding that there is no label for each human being, everybody is just human. And again, the feminine leadership, because it's focused on other, is really looking at that and unlocking the potential and the true capacity and ability of every single person. I've already mentioned about it being solution-driven, feminine leadership energy. It's about being in a learning mindset. So every single time something happens, rather than blaming or looking to who's done this or why this happened, every person in the organisation, when they're able to step into their feminine leadership, understands that they've co-created whatever's happened. And that's about taking 100% responsibility. It's about developing your talent in your organisation to say, okay, this is interesting that's happened. Let's not see it as bad or good. Let's see it as a learning opportunity. And what can we do going forward? What can I do going forward to ensure that it's different next time, or to ensure that we have a different output? So that learning mindset, again, in terms of the well-being and resilience, is a much more nurturing, culture enriching space to be in. And it's about evolving rather than adapting. You know, Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. There are hugely masculine leadership-led organizations out there that are doing that. They're adapting all of the time rather than evolving. The feminine flow, the feminine leadership energy is about understanding that we constantly need to evolve. It's about feeling confident to share everything, because we know that if other people do the same as us, then it will help us to be more innovative and creative. And again, as an organization, we're constantly reimagining ourselves. We've created this very feminine concept within an organization called stem cell thinking. And it's a process of getting people to think from a point of origin rather than a point of adaptation. So it opens up the mind and the solutions to infinite possibilities. It's about really understanding that if you're in that feminine flow, if you're in that innovation, imagination and creativity, then rather than adapting and regurgitating, you can actually create something that is completely innovative and fresh. And some of the ideas that have come up in programs when we've been using stem cell thinking have been unbelievably exciting and led to brand new solutions and lifestyle choices for organizations and some of the big brands that we've been working with. So feminine leadership is all about developing qualities that are inherent to women at the moment, only because of the current paradigm, such as being in flow, intuition, attracting things into your life and allowing things to happen. as opposed to working hard for them, which is very much in the masculine side of leadership energies. So what does this all mean? If I was going to summarize this for you before I open up to any questions that are out there, it's about being radically receptive. I read an amazing article recently on LinkedIn by somebody who was trying to summarize what are female leadership energies, and I've kind of brought them into what we're doing around our feminine leadership. Again, to reiterate, and in the understanding when we're summarizing, that masculine and feminine belong to all of us. We are unique individual human beings with the ability to tap into both, and every single person has their own balance of what works for them in terms of leadership and around the masculine and the feminine. And it's about really understanding that, unlocking that potential, and giving permission to people to be authentically themselves within those two spaces. So it's about radical receptivity, about being open always and always. It's about having that connection, so wholeheartedness starting with us, but also connecting, collaborating, partnering, not being afraid to share, to learn from other people, seeing them as teachers rather than people to compete against or as threats. It's about curiosity, always asking questions, questioning everything, the stem cell thinking, going back to a point of zero and understanding that when you're in that point of zero, you can create truly original thought. The stem cell thinking, just quickly, while I remember, is something that we developed when we were looking at creating a program for the European Space Agency. And they created the Moon and Mars project. And the concept was, if we were going to create a new space for human beings to live on the Moon and Mars, how could we create that without facing the same challenges that we face today? And of course, when you're in a space of masculine energy, which is about adaptation and regurgitation, it's very likely that you're going to take the thinking that we've had on planet Earth into those spaces. So stem cell thinking was about, okay, we know that who we are as human beings, we know that we want to connect, learn, share, evolve. How can we create a community in a space that is completely focused on those things in a way that it brings passion and purpose into people's lives? And I think that this whole concept, the whole project that we created around the European Space Agency, can be adapted and utilised really, really powerfully in organisations. So it's about never stopping learning. And then also 100% listening. So we talk about people being great listeners. You know, to be able to listen in 100% is not just about listening with your ears, it's about listening with every part of your being and really being able to energetically feel and understand what the people in your ecosystem want, need, think, and require from you as a leader. So that 100% listening is really important, and it's something that we also weave into all of our programs. And then finally, it's about relationships. It's about powerful relationships. Feminine energy creates long-lasting, sustainable relationships. And what organization in the world doesn't want or need that? You know, if you can create loyalty, if you can create the feeling in your stakeholders that they are bought into a person in your organization or bought into the feminine feeling in your organization, people who stay with you, that are on the journey with you, and that's really exciting. So at the end of the day, the best leaders, whether they're women or men, are learning to hone the business critical skills that we once called soft, and to harness the power of collaboration and authenticity. It's about deep listening to unleash the full potential of their teams and their organizations. So how do we bring this into organizations? As I said previously, for me, this is all about culture change. It's about being inclusive. It's not about necessarily creating one part of a project which is about just bringing women in. I know that quotas are important in terms of women leadership because we need to create a tipping point, and also women at the moment are very much bringing in the feminine leadership qualities. But I think it's much deeper than that. I think that organisations that are really looking to significantly change, organisations that are looking to thrive, to be here in the future, to come up with the best ideas, are creating a whole culture change around this. They're looking at every single part of the organisation in terms of through the lens of the masculine and the feminine leadership, and the masculine and the feminine imagination, and they're creating whole new visions and whole new values around that. And that's something that's really, really exciting to us as an organisation. So it's about culture change, and it's about bringing it into every single level of your organisation. Another way that you can bring it into organisation is through part of an initiative around women in leadership. And it wouldn't be right for me not to mention the Meirc Plus programme, which is being run, Women in Leadership Impact Through Self-Awareness. I'm going to be the lead facilitator on that, the 3rd to the 6th of March in Dubai. And I'm going to be taking participants on a journey of self-discovery and self-mastery, but it's also going to be very much focused on bringing that feminine leadership into organisations, and for the women who come on the programme to find their authentic balance within that and become champions of change and agents of change when they go back into the organisation. We're going to be using inspirational inputs, unique methodologies. It is immersive, experiential, like everything that we do. And people who come on this program and the other programs that we run truly go back into the organisation transformed. And we find that the knock-on effect really helps to create that culture change that I'm talking about and really inspire new vision around a balance of masculine and feminine. So I said at the very beginning of this webinar that I feel like 2019 is the year for the power of feminine leadership. And I really believe that to be true. I think that we've spent a lot of time focused on women in leadership. We've spent a lot of time focused on empowering women. And I think now it's time to focus on creating empowering cultures for absolutely everyone by bringing in the feminine leadership energy and understanding that this is something that has an impact on everybody within organizations and all future talent. So just as an aside, this is also something that we're doing in our project for schools. We're helping the next generation of talent to really be able to unlock their full potential by understanding that they have the yin and yang of masculine and feminine, and both are as important to their success. So thank you so much for listening. That's all of the content that I want to share with you today, but I'm now open for anybody to ask me any questions. So if you have any questions, please write them in the chat box and I will endeavour to answer them. Okay, we have some questions coming in. So as they come in, I'll read them out to you and then I will answer them. And just while I'm waiting for them to come up on the screen, I just want to reiterate again how exciting this concept is for me, because all of the work that's been done has been amazing around diversity and inclusion and amazing around women and women in leadership. But it also can lead to divisiveness. And I think that anything that we're doing that is focused purely on women has to include culture change. It has to include a mindset around bringing everybody in the organisation into that space so that everybody has the ability to change. Okay, so Louise has asked, what would be your tips for the first step into introducing feminine leadership thoughts into an organisation? And I think that where I would go to initially is helping people to understand what feminine leadership is and what masculine leadership is, because as I said at the beginning, people think that they are male and female. And even when I'm running programs and we're talking about feminine leadership, people slip into talking about female. And again, it's easy to do because that's our current reality construct. But I think that the first thing that you have to do is help people to understand that masculine and feminine belong to all of us, and it's about unlocking the full potential of every single human being, so that they can evolve and therefore organisations can evolve. So I would say, if you're going to start anywhere, it's about really understanding what that means and how excitingly different this is to what's currently happening in the marketplace in the space of just working in women and women's empowerment. So it would be about, first of all, understanding what it is, getting your people in the organisation to understand and buy into it, and then helping them to identify and align with what it means for them. So because the concept of feminine and masculine is different for every single person. So it's about what does it mean to them? How can they take it into their, not just their ecosystem in terms of the workplace, but also into their wider ecosystems and their families. And embracing the culture change. So looking at it as this is something that is fundamental to us thriving and becoming beyond sustainable as an organisation. It's also fundamental to us being able to contribute to the global ecosystem in a way that's meaningful and responsible. Okay, so another question. I agree it's very important to have a culture change, but what will be the effect on the females themselves till the culture changes? Well, this is why it's really important to address this and to create this as a culture change, because what I saw when I was working in Japan with the First Lady is organizations that were bringing women into leadership as a quota. without a culture change. And of course, if you're bringing women who are very much in their feminine leadership energy into a very masculine culture, you're setting them up to fail. So I think that if you're going to be empowering your women, if you're going to be creating leadership programs for your women, you also need to be in alignment addressing that culture change. However, the work that we've been doing with clients such as Danone and Zuho Bank and so on is getting the women who are going through the programs that we're delivering to become those agents of change, to become the culture change leaders. So as they're going through the program with us, they're also going back into the organization and they're stimulating dialogue, they're creating sessions, they're helping with the vision and values, and etc. So I think to your question, what will be the effect on the females themselves until the culture changes? If the culture doesn't change, then you are setting them up to be in a place where they're potentially going to be demotivated and disappointed. There has to be alignment, there has to be balance in the leadership energies for women to be able to step in and to be able to be authentically themselves in the leadership space. Any further questions from anybody? Okay. I would like to invite anybody that has been on to this. Oh, there's some questions coming in. But in the meantime, just to say, if you have enjoyed this webinar, if you've enjoyed the concepts that I've been talking about, I've got so much more that I could share with you, and so much more thinking. And as I said at the beginning, you know, this for us as an organisation is an open dialogue. It's a new space. I was doing some research last night in preparation for the webinar on the power of feminine leadership, and there isn't much out there that is powerfully corporate, that is relevant to organizations. There's a lot out there in terms of feminine divinity and flow and so on, but again, it's very much attributed to gender. And I think that organizations that really embrace balance, that really embrace leadership from a masculine and feminine perspective, they're going to be the ones to watch. They're going to be the ones that really are able to make a difference in their marketplaces. Okay, so another statement. I believe that the organisation needs to do a lot of basic changes to prepare women and culture for the feminine leadership environment. Absolutely agreed, but it doesn't have to be a massive undertaking, because if you can stimulate everyone in your organisation to get on board with this, if you can stimulate everybody to commit to action and to do something in their sphere of influence, then all of a sudden the culture changes. You create agents of change in the organisation who will stimulate that change naturally, and you know, you can launch it as a culture change. You can launch it as something that you're focused on, because it will inspire people and it will generate energy and activity and so on. But if every single person did one thing, if every single person connected in with their authentic self and understood that they could tap into both their feminine and their masculine, then all of a sudden the culture in the organisation would change. Any further questions? Okay, there's one more coming in. Thank you very much. I think that's everything for now. As I said, if there are any other questions, if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn or ask me anything else about this, I'd really open the dialogue. And of course, you can contact me through Meirc Plus Training as well. And please do let the team at Plus Training know if you're interested in finding out more about the Women in Leadership program that I am lead facilitating for them. So all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for your time. It's been really lovely speaking to you all and sharing our thought leadership and our thinking around the power of feminine leadership. Mark my words, this is something that you're going to be hearing a lot about through 2019, and I really look forward to opening up the dialogue with anyone that's interested. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.